Hello and welcome to another episode of Video Game Logic. Today's episode was recorded on August the 14th, 2019. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, the bountiful and bootylicious...
The Caffeine Rage?
On today's episode, we will of course be discussing the games we have played. G2A wanted 100 devs to sign up for its key blocker. Only 19 did, so they extended the deadline. We've got a couple of pieces of Steam news once again. A niche developer offers a game to schools for free. We will briefly discuss game night, community game night in Community Corner. And we will have a Steam Discovery Queue. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. Hello, Rage.
Hello.
Yeah, so you have had your list for forever about your passwords for the show.
Only since what? Episode 24?
Something like that. And
I'm looking at my list. It's episode 24.
Oh, well, there you go. And I have had names for you that I basically just pull out of my ass before we start recording every night. But I
explains why they're so shit.
But touche. But I have sat down and I have created a list for every letter of the alphabet. X was very difficult, but I managed to get a couple of adjectives. So, that's what we're going to be doing until we run out of letters, and then I don't know what I'm going to do. But
mine's pretty much just random as, came up with names or words or found an interesting word or occasionally a word of the day in my email.
It's the zippity-doo-dah word of the day.
Well, you just gave away Z, so I guess I'll hear that one in 22 episodes now?
Zippity is not the one for Z. X was really hard. 2 adjectives that are generally positive.
Well, I'm glad they're generally positive, so.
I didn't cheat, though. I didn't use, excited or excitable, and, focus on the X instead of the E. I didn't do that. Extreme. Caffeine Rage. No, I didn't.
So can you tell we're tired?
Yeah, we're recording a day late. I had a massive fuck you storm blow through my area.
Fuck you in particular to, what was your coworker?
Yeah, one of my coworkers. Lightning struck his house twice, fried almost every electrical thing in his house. All of his TVs, his gaming consoles, his PC, some things like a couple of tablets that were plugged in, fried a couple of his appliances. Almost everything was on a surge protector or surge protectors.
Yeah, his flux capacitor, though, it went back to last week.
Yeah. So he was not having a good day today. I was like, dude, why did you even come to work? If that had happened to me, I would have just stayed home and cried all day.
I hope he had insurance.
He does, but it doesn't cover it.
Oh.
It's one of those things. It's like you have to hit a certain value of damage before the insurance kicks in. It's a deductible thing, but it's based on the value of his home instead of just being a flat rate. And the last evaluation of his home puts the rate higher than what the cost of the damages are. So he doesn't know what he's going to do yet.
So why even have the insurance at that rate?
I don't know. That's a good question. I asked him that question. I also asked him why he continues to live here, because this happened last year. It just didn't destroy as many things.
What did you do to piss off Zeus?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'll ask him.
Are you sure he's
tomorrow.
not an ice giant and Thor's just trying to kill him?
I don't think so. Although he is super chill.
Well, not anymore.
No, he was very frazzled today. I gave him a hug. It was a very consensual hug.
Yeah, I like that you have to highlight that as consensual. No, you just waited till his back was turned in.
I got hugged by a really, really smelly person earlier this week. I don't think they would ever listen to the show, but they know that I make the show, so I will be very extra double vague. But they were like, came in and the air conditioner wasn't working in their car, and this person generally doesn't believe in using products like deodorant. One of those ultra hippie vegan, like times 10 sort of people. Like, you know, you can conjure up an image of someone and it's probably within the ballpark. So, you know, no
tie-dye everything.
No tie-dye. So, okay, maybe not that type of image, but, you know, you think of the person who's always like, yeah, I do everything totally natural. I don't put any chemicals in or on my body. It's all natural, and I don't eat meat. And, yeah, it's all natural BO. But they smoke. It's like, what? But anyways,
wait a minute.
that's another
question. What the fuck?
Yep. So it's been really hot here the last few days.
Maybe they're trying to counterbalance, you know. Their vice is tar, and then and nicotine, and you know all the various carcinogens, and you know they're afraid if they go over that amount, and they figure you know whatever amount they smoke is you know right there at the limit, so they can't risk deodorant.
So they'll be yeah. No, and it's been near or over 100 degrees with like an 80 to 90% humidity here every day for the last few days.
Yeah, I could just not imagine that, because I went to the post office today and it was 80% humidity, and it was right at 80 degrees when I was coming back home. And I was just soaked with sweat. I cannot imagine 100 degrees and somebody that doesn't believe in you know things like deodorant.
Yep, and the air conditioner's broken in their car, and my office is hot. It always is hot, but the AC in our entire building is having trouble keeping up. So my office was extra hot.
Next time I mass make bread, can I just put in your office?
Sure.
Put the dough in?
Sure. Would smell nice. But then the end of the session, they gave me a hug on their way out the door, and I'm like, oh, God. Lysol. I sprayed my whole office down. Myself. My mouth. My eyes. The Lysol burned worse than the stench.
Yes, but it smelled a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah. So tonight could be really random. I went to bed
and I have,
early last night. My power went out, which that's why we didn't, big storm. I live in an area where the power goes out frequently if the wind gusts too hard.
The power goes out if a smelly guy's outside.
Indeed. So, I went to bed really early last night. Well, at least for me. I was in bed at like 10 o'clock. But I'm still pretty tired. I had a very full day today. Nothing too crazy, but, Yeah,
well, I had an early start to my day because I needed to go to the post office because I had a package in that I needed to collect. And I pretty much had to get it today because, well, tomorrow it's going to be hotter. Friday, I have my food innings, so, go get food. Well, I don't have to go Friday, but, I prefer to go to Fridays.
Right.
So, and what I had coming in the mail, I needed to get refrigerated pretty quickly, which hopefully it's all right. I haven't had a chance to try it out yet. But, pretty much had to go to today, and if I wanted to beat the heat, I had to go pretty much as soon as the post office opened up, which for some reason my post office opens up later than most post offices because fuck you, that's why. So like I said, it was like 80% humidity and it was already creeping over 80 degrees by the time I got back. So yeah, it was not a pleasant day. I was tired as hell when I got back. So I have a tumbler that has half a pot of coffee in it.
Woo! I've just got tea to soothe my weary, tired throat. And some water.
Yeah, and so far my tumblers kept my coffee nice and piping hot.
Well, that's what they're supposed to do. One of those nice double wall insulated Tumblers.
Vacuum formed, lidded. I don't have the straw in it, so there is that.
No straw. It's no bueno.
Maybe I should have gotten the little bamboo umbrella for it.
Ooh, that would be nice. I wonder if, I don't know what the longest time it is from start of show to first discussion, but this one might be giving it a run for its money.
No, I'm pretty sure that we've had a lot longer.
Okay. Well,
I mean, it's 163 episodes, so
I just rolled over on that one. Okay. This is gonna
particularly whenever you've had an odd week. I'm sure it's gone a lot longer.
Yeah, quite possibly. This is going to be either a real good one or a real bad one. We're about to find out. Just because we're all...
What, my game I played? Or
no,
the episode?
Because we're all out of sorts.
Yeah. I blame Mother Nature. Such a shame that, the climate change is a Chinese hoax, because that would be a good thing to blame.
Oh. All right. Let's talk about the games we played this week. How about that?
All right.
How do we want to do this?
One.
Do you just want to go and get yours out of the way, or?
How do you feel about doing all yours in one chunk?
I don't think I mind.
Okay, so I only had one game I played, but I played a fair amount of it, so I have some thoughts.
Okay.
I mean, that's hardly unusual, but let's go with it. So I played 911 Operator. It was on sale last week, and I went ahead and I picked up the complete edition. So it had Special Forces, Every Life Matters. Wait, is that racist because Every Life Matters? Search and Rescue and the free. That's actually a thing. There's
I know
some sort. Yeah,
I'm familiar.
And the first response free DLC. So I got the entire package. And was it Ghost that played this before and talked about it?
I think so. Pretty sure it was Ghost.
So 911 Operator is a real-time with pause strategy management game where you are not only a 911 operator, but for some reason you control all the funding in your area for all the emergency services, EMS, fire department, and police. You set up the police units. You equip them with funding that you've gotten through your performance in the previous days. You set up their initial places, and for police, they just patrol around and look for crime. And fire and EMS, they set at station and in the hospital and wait for shit to go down. And it has a custom city generator where it takes a city that's not part of the main campaign and allows you to play on it. So I've been playing Charleston, West Virginia, which is the closest major, and I'm using major, massive sarcasm quotes, city to me, which presents its own unique challenge, which I'll get to in a little bit. But there's also a main campaign where you go between a bunch of major cities and have scripted events throughout the various evenings. So you start, I can't remember where you start, but you end up in Miami and dealing with this guy that's causing a lot of disturbance because he's upset because there's a music festival that's keeping him awake. So he's calling him fake bomb threats and that sort of thing and causing a lot of disruption. The storyline, it's basically just like little mini episodes as far as I can tell. I didn't get too far into it because I got kind of caught up in the free play mode, playing my local city and building up essentially my local emergency services. But there's also various events that could happen, like music festivals, like I said. Earthquakes can happen. On my free play, I've had 3 major catastrophes, which within the span of like 2 weeks. So, I had a fireworks factory catch fire, then explode, which caused this major firestorm across the city.
Mm-hmm.
Then a blizzard hit, then an earthquake, and I have mass protests going on the next day I play. So, pretty much the standard, right?
Yep, sounds about right.
But each one has their own, essentially, theme. So, like I said, the fireworks plant explosion creates just massive firestorm pretty much everywhere. It doesn't really pay attention to the epicenter. It's just, okay, you're on fire, everybody's on fire. Mass protests, it puts a lot more strain on the police force. Music festival, you have to tie up a certain amount of your resources at the music festival, otherwise shit goes down there while dealing with everything else that's going on in the city. The blizzard, I think, is the worst one I've encountered because it fundamentally breaks the game. So, what I mean by this is that whenever a unit is at a scene of an incident, be it, a kidnapping, just a fender bender, a house fire, what it does is it takes the units and does a multiplier based on their equipment. So, like if, you send up a fire brigade that has a bunch of tools that are really good for fighting fires, they get essentially a multiplier for any fire that is there. Then EMS gets a multiplier for injured and that sort of thing. Well, in the blizzard, there's a chance that whenever you're not on a major highway, your unit will get stuck and will have to dig themselves out, which is a technical skill. So fire department gets a bonus to that. And then everyone else is able to do it, but it's slower. Well, because of how the game handles incidents, if a unit is responding to, let's say, a heart attack, all right, and you have EMS en route, and it's in a rural area, so, which is part of the reason why I kind of like playing Charleston, is that it has a lot of rural highways on top of, or a lot of rural route, I should say, on top of the cityscape because of just the landscape of the area. And Charleston also is a very elongated city because it's goes along a river in a river valley. So, you get some odd roadways otherwise that you otherwise wouldn't see. But because of how the EMS would stop and start to dig itself out whenever it got stuck in a blizzard, it would then forget that it was responding to an incident because it got caught up in another incident. So I ended up losing a bit of reputation and funding, which in free play, it doesn't matter that much. You can go into the negative, as far as I can tell, but it just makes it harder the next day until you essentially bounce back. But in the scripted events, if you go below 0 reputation, you're fired,
Mm-hmm.
But it broke the system where an EMS unit would stop and dig themselves out and then forget they were responding to a call, which was a touch irritating. And also, during the scripted story, if you responded to an incident, let's pick something almost at random that, real life police and fire and EMS would respond to. How about a fake bomb threat? Well, in real life, any bomb threat is treated with a certain degree of seriousness and is reacted to, right?
Yeah.
In this, you actually lost reputation if you responded to the fake bomb threat, which makes no sense to me.
Huh.
To be fair, this was the story mode, so I think they were trying to go for a certain narrative. But it just, there were some times that it just didn't make a lot of sense. Like, there was one time that I would get a call from a kid playing with a phone, hang up, call back, still, no response and, nothing, not really sure what's going on. Real life, the police would be sent out to, check it out, right? I think that's fair, right?
Yeah.
I lost reputation because of that.
Huh.
there's a certain disconnect on the gameness of it that I really disagreed with. And also, sometimes it felt like it required a lot more manpower than it really made sense to have. A good example of this was during the firestorm. It basically tied up 2 of my fire units because I didn't realize it was going to be a major event. Just they were talking about this fire factory, going up in flames. Well, I sent 2 of my fire units there. Well, then every place else starts catching fire. And, I'm kind of screwed because I only had 3 fire units. And I didn't have enough money to send in to essentially hire reinforcements. I basically had to try to just keep things going until, the neighboring city, took pity on me and sent reinforcements. It was just a certain disconnect,
Yeah.
Overall,
well, at least they came to help.
Yeah, eventually. The city was half burnt down, but still. But overall, I mean, it's not a bad game. I believe it was Ghost. He talked a lot about the repetition. And yes, there is a lot of repetition that comes up very quickly. I mean, I understand that certain types of calls are going to happen every night. All right. Your fender benders, fires, that sort of thing. And a lot of them are treated as unvoiced calls. They just appear like incidents on the map and you send units out to deal with it. But then you have the actual voiced calls, and there is some variance in them, but it's in the choices that happen. Like, sometimes you get a call about an accident. And sometimes there's injury, sometimes there's not. And that's the variance, but it's the same voice actor. So, it starts to, bleed together, but the game is saved by the random, mini scenarios that happen because of, the protests are going on in town. Make sure your police are geared up and ready to go. Or, there's a blizzard going in and all your units are going to be moving a lot slower, and police bikes and fire bikes, motorcycles are not going to be as effective because of, trying to drive a motorcycle in a snowstorm is going to be a bad idea, right?
Yeah.
That's what really saves it to me. And there is Steam Workshop support for this, so there is a fair amount of custom content that people has made, but, it's not as good from what I could tell. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not great. But overall, I did like the game. It's definitely worth checking out if you like real-time strategy or are a fan of emergency services. The game does not give a lot of info on what particular things does, though. So, outfitting your guys with toolkits, it doesn't tell you exactly what's going on. So you have to try to figure out based on, just the feedback while they're using them. And I would have liked to seen some sort of the ability to set up custom unit icons. Like, for example, let's say I set up an ambulance that has essentially all the trauma gear on it. I'd have liked to seen the ability to highlight it on my units and not have to try to keep track of, okay, it's this particular unit on my unit tab. But just be able to see on the map to get a better idea of where it is at all times. But, it feels almost like minor quibbles at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, overall, it's not a bad game. It's definitely worth checking out, especially if you get it on sale. And the custom city aspect, or I should say the local city is a better way to talk about it, because it's still real life cities, but it's not a custom city. Like Charleston, whenever I got it, it's not the entire city because of just how they handle the cropping of the map. It's like 2/3 of it because of just the odd shape of the city's in.
Right.
And there's also sometimes that, the game will just screw you over. Like, you get a call for a stolen car that's heading out of the city and there's no units around it, but that's just luck of the draw. So I don't really, I'm not upset about that, but it does get annoying to lose reputation for no good reason. Especially whenever there's times that, it feels like you're losing reputation on things that you shouldn't. But I did like some of the calls that, especially during the scenario events, the major events, like a good example of, once again, would be the fireworks factory, because that seemed to have a lot more fleshed out special calls. It may just been, I got luck of the draw there.
Mm-hmm.
There was a special call that came in that was a woman that was trapped in a burning building with a couple children. And the stairs down, going downstairs wasn't an option because of fire in the stairwell. But there was a fire escape in the other room. Well, I actually played this twice. I essentially alt F4 to just try to see what the other options did. So if you told her to, go to the other room and keep down, which is pretty much common sense, she's able to escape to the other room. But then if you tell her to open up the window, it creates a backdraft and causes the entire room to explode and kills them. However, if you tell her to close the door behind her to block off the airflow, she's able to escape unharmed, or I should say with minor singeing. So there's a teaching tool here that I really liked, and that felt fairly realistic as soon as, as long as you keep it in the context of the calls themselves. But it's just that repetition on the general calls. It felt like they should have put forth even just a couple more voice actors, even reading the same script, because it's always like this one woman that's lost her either husband, dog, or child, depending on the luck of the draw. It's always this one guy that's gotten in an accident, but there may or may not be injuries. That's what I feel, what really drives home the repetition. And there is an option to mute those where it's just buttering, so you can get through the calls quickly. But that feels like a Band-Aid patch to something that they should have just, hired another voice actor or two. So, any questions?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm interested in this game. I have been for a while. And I'm sure at some point I'll pick it up.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely worth checking out. I did get the complete pack just because the entire thing was on sale and it was like $5 or so. I'm trying to think of exactly how much I paid. I think it was like $5 or $6 for the complete edition. And the different DLCs, they add different things that some of them feels like they should have been in the base game. So, special resources, it adds, 8 different, emergency vehicles with, more equipment types. Every Life Matters adds a few more special events and the ability to bring in reinforcements from off map, and also 2 more cities to the career mode. And the big one, I would say, if you had to only get one of the DLCs plus the freebie, would be Search and Rescue. So it adds a new call type where it's like the woman that lost her dog, husband, child. And that's 3 separate calls. It's not the same thing that's lost every single time. Or occasionally there's like an Alzheimer's patient that's gotten, wandered off. They'll have a central point on the map, and then, depending on the size of the area, to search, there'll be quadrants that will appear that you could either direct a unit to search manually, or depending on the equipment that the cops have, they could just stay at the central point and essentially do like a systematic search instead of a manual search. And depending on the size of the search area, it may be more worthwhile to manually search each one because it may only be 8 spots or 9 spots. Or you may get a 30 square block and trying to manually search those, especially if you're out in the rural areas. Well, a cop car has to go all the way around the damn mountain to get to the next quadrant. So, it's maybe best just to stick in the middle and just wait it out. So I would say Search and Rescue is probably the best one of the DLCs, but even then it's a little bit, maybe it should have been base game. That's the one that's the most changed though. The others are either just, content or more calls. But I don't feel bad about getting the complete edition. I think it's definitely worthwhile getting it.
Sweet. I guess I'll make sure and I get the complete edition. Next time or at some point when it's on sale.
Next time on Rescue 911.
So, does that do it for you then?
I think it did it for me.
All right.
You didn't seem to have any questions.
I don't know if that came through. I just did that thing and cracked all my fingers. All right, here we go. So I've got 4 games this week. We haven't done games we played since I was on vacation. So I've got a couple that carry over from there and then a couple of other ones. So I'm going to start with Forza Horizon 4, the Fortune Island DLC. It wasn't on sale or anything. I just went, you know what? I want to buy this. So
technically it was on sale because you have the Game Pass.
True. I think I got, 10% off because I have Game Pass or something like that. But I just went, you know what? I want to buy this. So I did. Fortune Island was the first DLC with the Lego World or whatever being the second one. So a couple of the things... Yeah, expansion. So a couple of the things that I thought were added in the Lego DLC were actually in the Fortune Island, or not a couple, I guess the main thing being that sort of cross-country thing where it's like a point-to-point PR event. That actually was added in Fortune Island, but
that sometimes pops up in the multiplayer. You have this point, get there.
Yeah. But let's see. The big main thing that it adds that isn't just sort of more of cool Forza Horizon stuff are the treasure hunts. There are 10 of them. And they're fun little things that work kind of like barn finds with an extra thing you have to do in the beginning, like a puzzle you have to solve. And most of the puzzles are at least I felt like they were relatively easy. I know a lot of cars, and some of the references are okay, it's definitely this car. Because there's one that's for the Willis Jeep. And it's something, something, something with a Jeep named Willis. And it's I know what car I need to take to do this. But there will be a specific challenge, usually completing a PR stunt with a specific car, or completing a race, a specific race with a specific car. And, it's all kind of put down in a riddle. A couple of them were a little bit harder. They didn't quite seem to make sense, or they were a little too vague. And it's well, I guess this could be anything. But most of them are... I found relatively easy to figure out. And you can always look up a guide online if you're I don't know what this is or how to do it or get it. But so you complete the puzzle or solve the riddle, complete the puzzle, whatever. And then you're given a photo that shows where the treasure is. And then a barn find sort of radius that the treasure is within that radius. And so you kind of match up the photo, to the landscape, and you're okay, so the treasure is roughly over there based on where I'm sitting, and then you go get it. And each treasure has got 1 million credits, and then you get something else out of all of them. There's a couple of them that have outfits. There's or special clothing options. There are a couple that give you cars. There are a couple that give you the emotes. And some other stuff, a couple of random things. There's you get a Viking outfit for the last one, which I need to actually use because it's pretty cool. But they're fun. I did all of those with my kid, except for the first one, which it like dumps on you like immediately and is super easy to solve. Like you're actually in the car that you need to solve or need to use to solve it, because you like come onto the island and it's like, hey, let's drive around and check out the island and have all this cool stuff. And it's like in the middle of a lightning storm and you drive around. But then it dumps you out like at the Horizon Festival on the island in the truck. And you're sitting in front of the PR event that you need to complete in order to get the treasure chest. And then the treasure chest is like 3 feet away behind some boxes. So I got the first one like immediately, and then I was like, oh, my kid would like these. So then we did all of the other ones together. And I tried to like talk him through how to solve the puzzles. A couple of them he got. Most of them he could not figure out. But he's 5, so I'll cut him some slack. In general,
yeah, but
though,
when he turns 6, he needs to get his shit together.
Yeah, that's right. Get your act together, kid. You listen to this in the future? Damn it. But this map is about half the size of the Great Britain map. And it's just generally more of the same. There's more PR events of every type. There's a new drift career or campaign, whatever, to do. I actually haven't done that yet. That's the last thing I have on the island. There's a whole set of new races. I think it added some new cars. I'm not 100% sure, because the Lego cars are the only ones that are really separated. That and one of the packs that you have to buy with money, I think, are completely separated from the main game. But it's got a couple of new like big race events. It doesn't have any of the, what are the challenges where you like race a plane and a train. It doesn't have any of those, which kind of made me sad.
Showcase.
Yeah, showcase. Although the hovercraft during the opening, where you're like touring the island for the first time, is like driving around and you kind of sort of race it,
but not really.
Yeah, but not really. That whole thing is pretty scripted, but I mean that's fine. It still looks really cool. There's a couple of like major different environments. There's a lot more stuff on the beach to go do, or to go explore like in the beach area compared to the Great Britain. And then there's like a big swampy, marshy area, and a pretty cool hill climb. But otherwise it's just, more sort of UK-ish environment. But I mean, I like Forza and I like all of the content there, so having more of that same great content felt pretty good to me. I do like islands.
Especially when there's 1,000 of them.
Indeed. And then I put it on my dressing. Or, on my dressing. On my salad. I fucked it up. Oh well. But yeah, that's really all there is to say about... Yeah, I mean, that's really all there is to it. Just more of the same Forza. So if you liked it, that's great. You'll like this. If you didn't, then you probably shouldn't buy this expansion. Next on my list is Star Realms. Star Realms is a physical deck-building card game that has a digital version. I discovered this game many years ago on a WTF Is.
I was going to say, this looks familiar for some reason. I guess that's it.
Yeah. And I got the digital edition, and then I also own the standard, or the real card game as well. But you can get it for free, and you get access to the first sort of campaign, which serves as a tutorial. And then you can play standard games against the AI. Or you can buy the, air quotes, full game for $5, which has the original single-player campaign, access to the asynchronous multiplayer, and then like a challenge mode. And then there have been a ton of expansion packs over the years. Because when I initially bought this, it was, like I said, several years ago, and it was just the standard game. And I went back to it. I hadn't played it in a long time. But I went back to it, and there's all this extra stuff that I'm going to eventually buy and get into, I think, if I keep playing it. The basic idea, I mean, it's a deck builder, so in case you've never played a deck builder game before, you're playing against one opponent. You each start with the same hand, which is like 7 cards that are worth money and 2 cards that do damage. And there is a set of cards laying out on the table, which you buy to build your deck as you play. And the ultimate goal is to reduce your opponent's health to 0 while making sure your own health is not reduced to 0. The game has got 4 factions or 4 types of cards that all build on each other. So every card does something, and then there's a little symbol at the bottom of the card that matches one of the factions. And if you play 2 cards, two or more cards of the same faction, then you'll trigger that card's secondary effect. And different factions are themed around different things. So the Empire, or the Imperials, their thing is decks are themed around hand control. So almost all of their cards, their bonus is you draw cards or your opponent discards or both. The Trade Federation is based around healing yourself. So most of their secondary effects just give you health back or additional money. The the Machine Cult, their faction is based around deck
That would be
control.
Apple, right?
Yes. Apple is based around deck control. So most of their cards either allow you to take a card for free from the trade row, or scrap cards from your hand, which effectively destroys them. So you can keep your deck lean, or be able to get cards for free maybe early on. They've also got a couple of cards that allow them to mimic other cards, so you can sort of work those cards into a deck more easily. And then the Blob, which are like these alien guys, alien faction, their whole thing is based around drawing like just massive damage. So they get the biggest damage boosts, and then a lot of them let you draw cards and then play them immediately. So there are some cards that do multiple things, or some cards that don't quite line up with generally what the faction's thing is. But in general, that's how all of the cards work. And if you're just playing against another person in multiplayer mode, or if you're just playing against the AI in standard skirmish, you start with 50 health, and both players start with the same cards, and you just go. And you try and defeat the other person. If you're playing in the campaign mode, there is a fully developed story, at least for the first campaign, where that you are the son of the son of a king in a small sort of, region of space, and you go on a campaign where you expand your territory and then eventually fight this strange alien menace that is coming to destroy your home planet. And all of the story parts have got a voice actor or a narrator who reads them to you. And most of the games use special rules, and it could be health is different, your starting hand is different, certain cards might give you bonuses or give your opponent bonuses. So it encourages you to play the hand in a different way, or approach the game in a different way than perhaps you would under standard rules. And then there are sort of rankings you can get for every mission, or stars you can get, however you want to look at it, for doing specific things. And typically that's, win in X number of turns, or don't use any of this type of card, or only use this faction's cards, or something like that. They're not required. You don't have to get them to unlock anything. It's just more like personal achievement and satisfaction. And then I don't know what any of the expansions are. I know that they add cards from the various expansions that you can buy for the actual, the physical card game, which I have one of the expansions, so I'm familiar with those cards when I get to it. But there are leader cards and special faction hero type cards that I have no idea what they do, and it's got several additional campaigns. But the free game, if you're just looking for something to play on your phone, because I've played it on Android. I have it on Android, got it from the Google Play Store, but you can get it on Steam, or you can get it on iOS devices. The free version would would be fine. If you're just looking for, something that you can play that doesn't require internet access or anything like that, you just want to play kind of the skirmish mode. Games take roughly about 5 to 10 minutes against the AI. Because, obviously a lot of the stuff is streamlined because it does all of like the damage counting, and you can just hit play all cards and it tells you, this is how much you heal, this is how much money you have, and stuff like that. So a lot of what makes the game take 30-ish minutes to play the actual card game brings it down to 5 to 10 minutes. So, you can play it pretty quickly. But if you're looking for a sci-fi story experience, a pretty decent one that you can play either on your phone or maybe on a laptop that is not so great. I mean, you could, obviously you can play it on anything, but, if you want a gaming experience on a platform that's not specifically an ideal gaming platform, this is a solid game that has got a lot to it, at least for the, air quotes, base game or full game or whatever, the one that costs you like $5. I can't speak to how worth any of the DLC is, but the base game is a blast and I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm still playing it, started playing it on my trip, and I am still playing it a little bit along. That brings me to my next game, though. This is the other game that I started playing on my trip a lot, and I've talked about this one on the show before. It's been a couple of years probably since I talked about it, so I figure I'll talk about it a little bit, not quite go super in-depth on it. Sword of the Stars, and I've got the complete collection on Steam, which has all of the expansion
content. The
content.
shield, the Mace of the Stars.
Yeah. It's
Morning Star of the Stars.
The Sword and Board of the Stars is what the complete collection should really be titled. But anyways, this is a sci-fi strategy game. I think some people list it as a 4X. It's not really a 4X game. There's an overall strategy map, and then there are battles, real-time battles. There's not a lot of, politics or anything. It's got to explore and expand and exterminate. I don't really know if there's much exploiting going on, but it's got at least 3 of the 4 X's. This game originally released, I believe, in 2006. It says the release date is 2008, but I'm pretty positive I had a disc version of this game in 05 or 06 that was the base game, and then they started releasing expansions for it, which I believe came out until like 2010 or 2011. But this is a game that, for it being older, plays really well on modern hardware. I don't have any issues running it on my laptop or my desktop, and that's one of the main reasons I enjoy playing it on trips like that on my laptop, because it'll run at a solid 60, no problems. Doesn't even really heat up my sad laptop. It's a pretty good looking game. It utilizes the sort of angular sci-fi styling approach to make its ships still hold up pretty well, and it doesn't really go in too much on the details. I mean, you can zoom in on the tactical map and you can see like, okay, this is kind of falling apart a little bit, but it still looks pretty good despite the fact that it's 12, 13 years old, somewhere in that realm. But this game has got a couple of really unique features that I enjoy. It has got a slightly randomized tech tree. There are certain techs that everybody gets every game, but the various races, there's 6 races, they each have certain sort of percentage pulls that they can get certain tech. So the humans are pretty well rounded. They've got a roughly even chance to get just about any tech on the research tree. But the alien races lean more towards one style of play or another. So there's one alien race that leans much more towards ballistic weapons. So on that, on the research tree, they will get a lot more ballistic weapons options. There's one that leans more towards defensive tactics and shields. So they get like energy shielding, or they're more likely to get energy shielding, cloaking, less likely to get the more advanced weapon tech in the game. Things like that. There are certain techs that everybody kind of has a chance to get, but that you might not. So your playstyle from game to game can change pretty dramatically based on what tech you get access to. But there's still a guaranteed level of basic tech. You're always going to get the various levels of star drives. You're always going to get the ability to colonize worlds and things like that. So it's never going to be completely game breaking, but you might not get a tech that you typically rely on, and then you might be forced to think outside the box, try something a little different. The game has got a huge backstory and sort of lexicon that you can go to for lore. There is apparently a lot of this stuff came in rather large booklets in all of the expansion content. There is an old wiki that still is up for this game that has all of that content. So there's a detailed history of each of the 6 alien races, from technology to physiology to psychology. Very fascinating stuff that has gone into this game. And it's fun to just go read it, even if you're not interested in playing. The actual gameplay itself, fairly straightforward. The game is divided into 2 sections: a strategic map where it's turn-based. So you complete whatever actions that you can on your turn from a management standpoint. You set up research. You control fleets to navigate them to different star systems based on each race's unique sort of star drive or whatever it is. If you need to colonize worlds, build ships, or orbital platforms, things like that, manage any trade routes that you have, all of that sort of overworld map stuff. And then whenever combat takes place, either because you're assaulting another race's colony, or you run into a random event or encounter, maybe there's an asteroid, a massive asteroid or a meteor shower coming towards one of your worlds, and you need to destroy them, that might trigger combat, which takes place on a tactical map, and you do a real-time RTS style combat. The map is, all of your ships will operate in a 3D space, but you control them on a 2D plane. So the way that works is that ships can go along the vertical axis if they are going to run into each other or into an asteroid, or if they sort of maybe circle an enemy ship. Some of your guys will move up and some of them will move down in order to avoid, or at
others
least
will just ram it.
Sometimes, actually. That's a valid tactic. Ramming is a valid tactic, especially if you're kind of fucked. You can take your fuel tanker ships or anything that contains really explosive materials and just ram other ships with them, because they do massive splash damage. It's a valid tactic. Kamikaze. It works.
Bonsai?
Bonsai. But, they will move up or down relative to the plane in order to try and avoid either contact with ships or shooting each other, that sort of thing. So, operates on a 2D plane, but it's a 3D physical space. Tactical battles, anything can be time limited. You can limit the strategic map turns anywhere from, I think it's 1 minute to 10 minutes, and then you can do the same thing for the tactical battles, or you can just set them to unlimited. And I mean, if you're playing against the AI, there's no reason to set a strategic turn limit to anything unless you're trying to challenge yourself for some reason. But, that's the sort of thing that could be beneficial against other players in a multiplayer setting, which the game does have multiplayer. It's got asynchronous multiplayer, and then, you can play it in real time. It's also got a drop-in, drop-out method where the AI will take over for you if you leave, and then you can take your slot back if you come back and the game's still going later. Game length varies wildly depending on how you set it up. If you create a very small galaxy map with maybe just a couple of dozen systems to fight over, your game might be over in a few hours, especially if you're aggressive. If you set it to some of the largest settings, which is 350 systems with the maximum distance possible between each of the stars and things like that, you could be looking at a 12 to 20 hour gameplay time. The more players you add, the longer it takes, even with the AI, especially once the map opens up and you're like, oh god, they have how many worlds? So game length really varies. But
And wait, is that Gandhi?
You can get a quick one in. You can do some accelerated game start stuff as well. You can start with like large amounts of money and techs. You can do that for all players involved. So you could challenge yourself, maybe give the opponent a ton of starting tech, and you don't start with anything. Stuff like that. The best feature about the game is how unique each faction is. Like, the slightly randomized tech tree is pretty fun, honestly. Like, I enjoy that, especially on the upper end tech. Kind of not knowing what you're going to get. But each of the factions are very unique, both in ship design and the way that they play. Mostly it has to do with what type of FTL drive that they have, because that kind of dictates how you approach the map in general, and then also it might reflect some decisions you have to make in tactical gameplay. For example, the humans have got what's called a node drive, and it utilizes gravitational fractures in space between star systems. I mean, it's all sci-fi bullshit, but essentially they have the fastest faster than light travel, but they have to follow specific lines between star systems. So you might not be able to go directly from point A to point B because there's no gravity fracture between those two star systems. Whereas the Hiver, which is a race of alien insectoid creatures, their faster than light travel is teleportation. You have to set up teleportation gates, but in order to do that, you have to slowly march across space using slower than light travel and deploy a teleportation gate. But then you can move ships instantly between any two teleportation gates up to a certain point.
But let me guess, the teleportation gates can get destroyed.
They can get destroyed. So for the Hiver, you might not... Most races don't have a reason to protect a world or a system that they haven't colonized. But the Hiver, your teleportation gate network, if it gets destroyed, then you're fucked. So you might have to defend a useless, chunk of rock because it's a key position.
It's your beachhead.
Yeah, exactly. There's some other aspects too. There's one race that's called the Lear, and they don't have a slower than light drive. They have like mini teleportations that their ships do, and you will always want to try and engage enemies as far away from gravity wells as possible because that messes with their propulsion system. So if you're in deep space, you get a speed and maneuverability advantage. So you want to try and intercept fleets in deep space rather than fighting around planets. There's some other things too, but the races all play extremely differently. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, I've been playing this game off and on for about a decade now. I guess longer. 12 years now. So I still keep coming back to it. I'm still enjoying it. I'm still playing it right now. Or not right now, this moment, but...
I was about to say, wait a minute.
But I've been playing it a lot at work. It's an excellent laptop game, because I can just leave it sitting in the strategic map if I'm, need to get up and go do something. I don't have to worry about it. And it doesn't overheat my laptop or anything, so I'm not worried about it catching on fire or melting to my desk. So, excellent game. Love it.
Would that make it a desktop if it fuses with your desk?
Do what?
Would it make your laptop a desktop if it fuses with the desk?
Possibly. Quite possibly. I hadn't considered that, but now that you mention it, that makes sense. The last game on my list is She Sees Red. This showed up on my Discovery queue a few weeks ago, I believe. I mean, it definitely showed up on my Discovery queue, but fairly recently. But what She Sees Red is a choose-your-own-adventure style game, interactive movie thing. It's really interesting. So it's a lot like playing... It plays very much like a Telltale style game.
Only without the bankruptcy?
Only without the bankruptcy, and you don't specifically slowly wander around looking for which thing to put into which other thing to solve a puzzle. there are two sort of parts to it. You are following, let's see, the lady in the image.
The one that's seeing red, or?
Yeah, sure. She's wearing the brown jacket with the ponytail. Like, you're following her, and she is sort of interacting with the decisions that you make as the other character, which is just like this guy wearing a hoodie.
And that's red.
Yes. And it's sort of swapping back and forth. And so you'll see sort of what the consequences were for the decision that you made with the other character through her eyes. And then it'll go back and you'll, be the other character and you'll get to make a decision. It does some fun stuff. It's very cinematic when you're watching the lady. And I don't know any names. I've played through it twice to get some different outcomes. But there's I think 3 separate endings and then a bunch of separate scenes in the middle. You can just get small different sort of differences in your outcome. But anyways, I haven't learned their names, and I'll talk about why that is in a minute, and the one thing that frustrates me about it. But with her, it's like you're watching a TV show or a movie or something. It's purely cinematic. But when you're doing this sort of choose your own adventure part with the hoodie guy, you get these really interesting camera angles that are very clearly we have played Telltale games or, The Last of Us. And it's got that sort of, I don't quite know how to explain it, but whenever you're going to make a choice and the camera gives you, a strange view of something and 5 seconds to make your decision, and the camera's at a weird angle, or people are looking off into the distance and things like that. It's you get that. It's very gamey. And then whenever there is movement or motion, whenever it's a longer scene where you have to make multiple decisions throughout, it will take a very third-person camera approach. So it's you make a decision and then you kind of follow along in this third-person camera, or kind of like in the cover camera of a cover shooter, if he's maybe slinking on the walls or something, you get a camera that's very reminiscent of, I'm in third person trying to be sneaky or something like that, and I'm crouched up against cover. It's very interesting the way that they meld sort of the two elements together, and it's very, very well done. The production value is extremely high. The voice work is excellent. The quality is very good. I was very impressed. And there are, the 2 endings that I've gotten are drastically different. So your choices definitely matter. And there's a couple of choices where you can be okay, this choice definitely is one that matters. Some of them, it's harder to tell if they make a difference or not. I'm not really going to talk about any of that because I don't want to spoil the story. I actually thought it was quite interesting, and I liked where it went. It takes about 30 minutes to do a playthrough, 35 minutes. The game is very adult, I will say that. There are breasts exposed a couple of times. They are not for our pleasure. They are done in an artistic fashion, but there are breasts exposed if that's something that you have
so you don't appreciate art.
Well, I appreciate the art, but it's not titillating, I guess, is what I mean.
Oh, I thought you said they were titillating, or they were tits.
There were tits, but they were not titillating. But anyways, then there's also some blood and guts, violence, and it shows that. Almost said, yeah, it's special effects. Special effects have come a long way. Think some of the stuff in Game of Thrones that is maybe a little more tame. We're not talking about someone who's fully in view of camera, who's completely skinned, been skinned alive. It's not that bad, but they're not afraid to show blood and violence and then nudity. So if any of those things bother you, or if you thought, this would be interesting to show to my kids, probably don't show it to your kids. Anyways, the one thing that I don't like, though, this thing is Russian, which is fine. That's not what I don't like. But they did not redo any of the scenes or anything for their translations. So their mouth is moving in speaking Russian, and then you hear English.
So the old Kung Fu movies.
Yes, that was very distracting. Like, the voice acting quality is really good, and they've picked voices, English voices, that match, excuse me, the look of the characters on screen, but it's just like their mouth is moving and the words don't match up. And that really bugged me. You can do subtitles, but by default, there are not subtitles enabled. I didn't realize it was Russian, so I started playing it, and I was like, is
this lagging?
Yeah, I was like, is this lagging or glitching? And then I was like, no, they're probably speaking another language. And then I went and looked, and it's Russian. So, also there's Cyrillic in a couple of the scenes to confirm that. But it's fun. I really like it. I'm very impressed. So if they keep making these sorts of things, I will definitely keep wanting them. I mean, I got a review code for this, so I didn't have to buy it, but I think it's worth the $8 that it costs if you just want to go buy it. I understand, like, if you're like, oh, seems like it's steep. Totally get it, but the production value was super high. I was very entertained. The story was interesting and intriguing, and based on the fact that the decisions that you make can have a major impact on where the story goes, it's worth it. I think it's worth
considering, a lot of times the choose your own adventure, interactive novel, whatever you want to call this, often it's just, very limited difference in the storylines, but this sounds like it was really different.
Yeah, there were, like I said, there's 3 endings, and the 2 endings that I got were completely different. I think that most of that hinged around one choice that I made, but I'm still missing over half of the scenes, so I don't know. When I go through and try and get towards the 3rd ending, I'll see how many of those additional scenes that I unlock. But it felt like every choice that I made mattered at least somewhat. Okay, so the first choice that you make in the game, I'll talk about this. There's a guard that you run into as you're sneaking in, and you kill him. Like, he captures you, he brings you to a back room, but then you kill him. Like, that's not the choice. The choice is, what do you do with the body? And you can just sort of leave it, which causes a certain reaction from the guy who owns the club that you're at, and the lady who is like an investigator lady, causes one reaction from them that leads to a complete set of scenes that you don't get if you choose to make it look like it was a suicide. So immediately you get 2 pretty major branching paths that come back together a little bit later for a specific scene that is essentially sort of which way do you tackle this problem. Are you like more sneaky, or do you do something that's not quite so sneaky? Which both of those can lead to different paths. I'm not sure how much those actually change the ending. There's another pretty major scene that I think is one of the big ones that determines what ending that you get. But, I mean, you can get some very, very different stuff based on which choice that you make. So, I know that's all really vague, but I can't really say much more without starting to spoil the story. But it was good. I liked it. So yeah, She Sees Red. 2 thumbs up. And that's all the games I've played in the last few weeks.
Yeah, and we're right at the usual time for this.
Woo. How you doing? You said you might need a break.
I think I'm okay for now. I've not been sipping my coffee as much as I thought I would.
Okie dokie.
Do you
G2A...
need to go?
No, I'm good. I just was checking on you. Moving on to our first news topic of the night. G2A wanted 100 devs to sign up for its key blocker. Only 19 did, so the deadline has been extended. I need to do some tab management and drink some tea, so I will let you start this one.
Yeah, this goes back, about a month and a half now, 2 months, where G2A was basically in damage control trying to say, no, we're really good guys, right?
Yeah.
And this is for the key tool that they were talking about. essentially trying to whitewash their service. And honestly, there's about 18 more devs on here than I was expecting. I was sure at least one would sign up, but 19, that's actually a lot more than I was expecting. So
yeah.
This really just comes down to them trying to pass the buck and saying, "Oh no, we don't have enough. We'll give you a little bit longer." This feels almost like extortion to me, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh sure, we could clean up our site, but there's not enough interest in it. It just feels like such a scumbag move. Well, I mean, it is G2A, so, not exactly a surprise there, but that they could do something about their site, but they don't want to because we don't think it's going to be popular enough. I mean, let's be honest here. They are not wanting to build this tool because it'll hurt their bottom line. Assuming people actually trust G2A to use it. That's the kind of the flip side of it. And I think that's a lot of reason why we haven't seen a lot of people saying, oh yeah, well, like to use a tool like this, because I mean, G2A has been weaseling out of the whole, what was it? 5 times, 10 times, reimbursement on any losses due to, chargebacks.
Yeah.
Either not responding or saying, oh, well, you can't prove that.
Yeah, and the Factorio devs have taken them to court, and was there someone else that did?
Subnautica was actually in the process, but they're saying, that was actually just breaking as we started recording that Subnautica, devs are the G2A saying Subnautica can have been losses due to them because we didn't even exist back then. But they also launched that, year. I mean, it's just a lot of fuzzy stuff. Honestly, I don't trust G2A as far as I can throw them. For good reason, of course.
Yeah, neither do I. So they've got the list of the devs that signed up. I recognize a couple of these, but
yeah, a lot of them are pretty small time.
Yeah, so there's Beer Money Games, Bossa Studios, CCP Games, Crimson Leaf LLC, Deep Silver.
Yeah, Deep Silver I recognize.
Yeah, me too. Dirty Beast Games, Dynart, Electrocosmos, Ferrum Studio, Foxbite Games. I recognize their name. I couldn't tell you what they make, but I've heard it before.
Yeah, a lot of these are like, 1 or 2 games out and, very small. So yeah. I definitely see why they're going after, well, we would like to have that sort of tool.
Hound-Picked Games, Metal Bear, Modoko Studios Entertainment, Moonlight Mouse, Nyarg, that's their name, all caps, Sima Games, or that perhaps Sima, S-I-M-A Games, Squid Punch Studios, Tate Multimedia, and Troglodyte Games.
Yeah, I'm just randomly grabbing a couple of these. Metal Bear actually is Game Dev Tycoon.
Okay.
Which I didn't recognize at first. Let's see. Let's grab another one.
Beer Money Games. Demolition Derby 3E2. Mini Golf 3D. These all look like mobile games?
Question mark?
Not. Google Play, Amazon.
Yeah, a lot of these are pretty, like one-offs or just very small studios, which I understand them, wanting to jump onto this because,
oh shit!
Oh, somebody's vibrator just went off.
Yeah, that's my Star Wars RPG alarm, which I forgot to turn off. Oops.
I put on my Darth Vader mask and grab my lightsaber. But
roll
Squid
to
Punch
intimidate with advantage.
Let's see, it's a 2-person dev team making some sort of board game tactics game from the looks of it. But yeah, I definitely see why a lot of these smaller studios are jumping on this. Partly, I think, just to try to, get a little bit of protection. But this just feels so much like extortion. Yeah. I think that's why it just rubs me the wrong way. That they could do this, but they don't want to. And there's good reason for it.
Yeah.
And also, it requires a level of trust that I think a lot of devs just don't have in G2A, because they have to submit keys to be able to compare against the log. And what's the odds of G2A just taking the keys and running?
Probably pretty high.
Or having some sort of leak. I realize, tinfoil hat and all that, but G2A hasn't exactly been playing above board. So I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah, unless there's just one that I don't realize how large they are, the only big developer on this is CCP Games, which, among other things, makes EVE Online.
Isn't Deep Silver fairly decent sized?
I'm pulling them up right now.
I mean, Metro Exodus, right?
Yeah, I guess they did.
They've done a few things, right?
Yeah. Okay. They've made a lot more than I thought that they had. They've got a lot of games I'm not familiar with, and then they have the Metro series. It's probably their...
And the Saints Row series.
But yeah. Oh, they did Saints Row? I didn't realize Deep Silver did Saints Row. Okay. Never mind. They're big. They and CCP are, I guess, the two big developers.
I mean, Deep Silver is the publisher and also part developer of the Saints Row series. So, yeah, slightly big, right?
Yeah. I doubt that they're going to get their 100 signatures. Seriously doubt that. I don't know what you think. The question is, what are they going to do if, or most likely when, they don't get 100 signatures? Like,
is this going to be a recurring thing that they just keep pushing the date back further and further?
That would be funny.
We have 21 signatures. It's only taken us 10 years to do it. I wouldn't find it, too surprising, seeing that it's a lot of small developers latching on to eventually, if they keep pushing back the deadline more and more, but not, a month or less than a month. Just because of, all the animosity against G2A for good reason. I want to highlight that. Yeah, there is a good reason that people don't trust them. That and the whole snarky attitude that they've taken over the years with we're totally, a completely legitimate company. Whenever it's been shown over and over again that, they're scumbags.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, just nobody trusts them. Definitely.
And this requires a level of trust far beyond what they've been able to get. Or what they deserve.
Yeah. I'm looking just at other stuff in this to see what else there is to bring up. But when I was managing my tabs and drinking my tea, I think you summed it up very well. Like, there's no trust for these guys. We've got no faith that they're gonna do anything that isn't scummy. And when they don't get the 100 signatures, the only question is, like,
what's
do they
hilarious
gracefully back out, or do they sort of pitch a fit about it?
Well, let's see. This is G2A, so I imagine the whiny shit fit. But what's hilarious is at the end of the article for the gamesindustry.biz. Meanwhile, a petition started by Robots founder Mike Rose around the same time, calling for G2A to stop selling indie games entirely, has received more than 6,200 signatures.
Nice.
Which G2A kind of shot themselves in the foot, saying, well, you shouldn't worry about it because indie games are such a small portion of our overall sales. It's mostly AAAs. Well, then stop selling indies. I mean, I definitely understand that. I think there should be some sort of essentially flea market, swapping back and forth spare keys. But the problem is that you run into so many just, bad eggs, for lack of a better term. People that's bought a bunch of keys with stolen credit cards that it's just not worth it.
Yeah, there was a site that I used to use that was that. It was key swapping, and the site, it's like you couldn't buy this currency. The site had like a coins thing, and you use that as sort of a medium of exchange to trade your keys. And there were people that were willing to trade physical games as well, but like you had to handle shipping and all of that like on your own. But it was just a way to, swap keys from like bundles and things. And the site eventually cratered. I don't know what happened. I don't know if there was just some issue or if it just stopped being supported. I mean, it was not like a streamlined, really nice site. It was like, hey guys, I built this site over the weekend to help everybody trade keys.
Yeah, I read about this. I read about Squarespace off a YouTuber, and I made a site real quick.
Yeah, it really felt like that. But it worked. I used it for probably a year.
I mean, there is
years.
A subreddit for game swaps. Of course there is, right? I mean, there's a subreddit for everything.
Yeah.
That is pretty heavily policed for this sort of thing, and that's probably the safest place to do it, but it's also, it requires a third party to get involved. And I've just never, felt comfortable with it. Mostly because, I never really had anything worth the trouble. That's the other thing. So whenever I get a spare key, I usually just, hey, Jared, do you like this game?
Yeah. I've done that a couple of times in return, but typically you have more spare keys than I do, so.
Typically whenever I get a Humble Bundle, there's like 2 or 3 games in it already. That's, assuming that it's not, one of the fully combined keys where it's 1 key per tier. Yeah, for a while, Humble Bundle was doing direct activations on Steam, but supposedly the reason why Steam stopped doing that was that the guy that made the system left the company and nobody knew how it ran. That's complete hearsay. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it's funny.
That sounds about right, though, for how something would go.
Especially with Valve.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I could believe that. Regardless of whether or not it's true, headcanon. That's what happened.
And now I'm thinking of the XKCD comic of headcanon.
Yeah.
Or do you know that one?
Yeah. No, I know that one.
Of course you do, right?
Indeed. I don't know if I have anything else to add to this topic further.
It's more just, kind of a general update on, hey, they got a lot less than they wanted, but more than what we thought.
Yeah. More than I expected. I figured they'd get a couple. But 19. That just seems excessive.
Well, a lot of them are like just one-off studios or, mobile devs. So maybe we should have set the bar a little bit higher, like 33.
42.
No. Now it's 47. You have to adjust for inflation.
Oh, I see. My apologies.
Although, with the economy crashing, it may go back down to 42.
I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to feel any more existential dread than I already do on a daily basis.
What, you don't want to talk about the Statue of Liberty? Again?
No, we already covered that tonight, off mic. I'm good. Let's go talk about a couple of
other
Steam
good things?
News items.
So we have a couple Steam news items that we're bundling together, creating our own bundle. The
Yep.
Steamy bundle.
Steamy. The first one is some Steam Workshop submissions now require moderator approval.
Yeah, and this is first-party stuff. Team Fortress 2, Dota 2, and CSGO, all of which have had issues with their workshop items essentially being some scam items involved. Usually some sort of link involved to steal passwords for Steam accounts, or for some sort of pyramid scheme, like CSGO will have a item in sarcasm quotes to vote on that says get free keys to open up your loot crates by going to this link, or something like that, or guides on how to get a bunch of stuff. And this is mostly Valve trying to finally clean up the workshop, at least on some of their own stuff. So now items that are added to those workshops require approval of a moderator before going live. And I honestly don't really see a downside of this outside of that it slows down the workshops, but all three of those workshops, they're not what you generally think of when it comes to workshops for Steam games. Typically, Steam games have two types of workshops. They have where you subscribe for essentially a mod, like RimWorld, Truck Simulator, that sort of thing, where you subscribe to something and it's a piece of content you download and you play it. These workshops, they're essentially a community voting tool where, especially Team Fortress 2 is the one I'm most familiar with, obviously, where it's a skin that gets uploaded, or maybe a map that people vote on. Hey, I want to see this in game, and once they get popular enough, may get added to the game as a part of an update. And I'm pretty sure that's how it's handled in Dota 2 and CSGO as well, that they're treated as community tools. CSGO may have a mixture of the two, where it's community stuff and the modding with different maps. So it may be the one that gets the slowdown. Actually, I'm heading over there to double check now. So I fail to see a downside here, outside of things get a little slower on updates.
Yeah, I agree. I can think of a few other games where this wouldn't be a bad idea.
Okay, it looks like it may be a combination of the two, where it looks like they have both, where it's cosmetic items, but also actual maps. So CSGO is kind of like the in-between of the two. But it's also, if Valve starts cracking down on copyright infringement, especially for things like Tabletop Sim, that'll be very interesting to see how things go. Because I think that would pretty much kill Tabletop Simulator.
Probably. I mean, the custom, or the user-created games, which involve a lot of stuff that is not included in the DLC, or the expansion, or whatever, that's got the officially supported board games for it. But that stuff is what makes it, the game turn. We've got a couple of dozen that we've all played together, and then I've got several dozen more downloaded that I might play, or we might play as a community, or to play with my family or something like that. That's what makes that game turn. And quite a few other games, PC games, rely on mods, and in this context, the workshop, to really keep them going. If they crack down on that stuff, then that might be an issue. They would be within their right, their prerogative to do so, but man, that would be detrimental to a few games.
Yeah, but at the same time, we were seeing just rampant scam stuff on some game workshops. So, right now we're at an in-between point, that balancing point. Mm-hmm. And I think may be an option for some devs to want to have some sort of moderatorship. So maybe this could be an option. But that also requires a bigger commitment that I think a lot of devs and publishers really want to give, because Team Fortress 2 is 10 years old now, and they're still
Something
moderating
like
it. To be fair, that does have microtransactions in it. So even though they're in less than fully active development of it, it still brings in money, so it warrants being moderated. But at the same time, we see game devs cut games loose all the time. So if this is not handled by a third party, maybe make it where, hey, maybe the cut for Valve goes up a percentage point and they handle the moderation. Then, this is going to make it so that after a certain point when the devs, give up on a game, or, even the studio shuts down, because, that's another thing, is that there's games out there that are still somewhat active with the player base that the game devs are gone. The studio's gone. One I can think of off the top of my head is actually Nomoria, which is a base builder. Think of it sort of like a little bit closer to Dwarf Fortress than RimWorld is, because it has the different Z levels. It essentially stacks on top of one another.
Mm-hmm.
It got fully released, but it was never in a complete state. It never completely filled out its roadmap from its early access days. And people are actually going in and remastering the game as a community project.
Oh, wow. That's some serious commitment.
Yeah. But that also, that genre, there's not a lot of good games there. There's a lot of shit, but there's not a lot of good games. And Nomoria, while flawed, is a fairly good game for what it is. It's just, clunky. But, that's the Dwarf Fortress aspect of it.
Right.
So, if it had a workshop, which I don't think it actually does, and it had the moderation turned on, well, the game dev, gave up on it and moved on. Went on to do something else, or, gave up on game development. I'm not actually sure which. That would completely kill the workshop. Or think of Bethesda, when the next Elder Scrolls games comes out. Will they kill the workshop for Skyrim because they don't want to moderate it anymore?
Yeah. That would be something they would probably do.
Bethesda being shit? Nah. I mean, I definitely see the point of some people possibly being upset with moderation, especially if it's handled poorly. And that's the problem with game development, is that, sometimes things do happen unexpectedly. We've had game studios just up and die without really any public warning. I mean, hell, even Telltale, they up and died. They imploded just due to a investor not pulling out of the deal.
Yeah, and a lot of times there is very little to no sign that sort of thing is going to happen. I mean, Telltale, there was some indication that they were experiencing some troubles, but no indication that they were just going to close up shop like that. So,
yeah, and we've had game developers just leave their games completely unplayable just because servers go down. So, I definitely see where people could be a little bit cautious with this. I'm definitely playing. Is devil's advocate even the proper term here? Of seeing the downside of it, of this sort of moderation?
I'm not sure. I mean, playing devil's advocate essentially means that you take an opposing viewpoint to your own, just to explore it.
I guess I would be playing devil's advocate here, where I'm feeling out what possibly the negatives of Valve taking a more active role in the workshop has been, because, or I should say, allowing that option if they open it up to non-Valve games. And I think that would be the big one, is that, it could possibly lead it to where a game developer may want to nudge the player base into a new game. Like, the next Call of Duty's out, let's stop allowing updates to the workshop. Assuming, a Call of Duty would actually allow mods, of course.
Yeah, I mean, you can mod them, but they don't allow them or encourage them.
Oh, they'll ban your ass. You make it so that the field of view is non-nauseating? How dare you? And the other one, the other big Steam news, or big piece of Steamy news, is the Steam Store now allows you to mark games you played on other platforms. And you're thinking, well, why would I care about this? Well, how about all those Twitch games that you may have through Twitch Prime? Or, maybe you have the Xbox Game Pass. Well, you want to mark those so you don't buy the games on there. And Steam will start saying, okay, you have this in your library, you have this on other places. What about this? And it factors it into your recommendations. So it's actually kind of a neat little thing that they're doing that just allows you to not only mark games that you already have, but also factor them into your recommendation engine. And I don't really see the downside here.
I don't either, especially with them relying so much on algorithms to try and present games to you and, recommend stuff to you. Being able to say, I don't want to see this game on Steam anymore, but it's because I played it instead of I'm not interested, would help more accurately.
Yeah, especially with the article says, with the Steam Lab, where they have the advanced recommendation engine. Have it factor in a bunch more games, especially if you have a lot more of an even spread in your library than we do.
Yeah.
I mean, be able to go through, like, my Twitch Prime and mark off I guess, what would it be, like 30-some, 40-some games in there now?
Probably. I don't know, but it's a decent chunk. I mean, we've been Twitch Prime members for about a year.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, you had it, like 2 or 3 months before me?
Yeah, but I've missed a couple of months going to claim the rewards because they're not automatic.
Yeah, and now I've been bashing you on the head. Hey, your rewards are up.
Which I appreciate greatly. Thank you very much.
So, having that factor into the algorithms and allowing you to not only just skip the games that you've already bought and, not knock down the chance of double dipping, because it would really suck to buy a game and realize, oh wait, I had that over here, and make it so that ignore is a lot more intuitive of, okay, it's not because I hate the Call of Duty series, it's because I got it in a humble bundle or this particular flavor of it, and I have a DRM free copy is not going to happen, but I have it like on Xbox, or I got Ukulele through Twitch Prime, or I have the latest Gears of War through Xbox Game Pass. So I'm not interested in it on Steam, but I have it still factor in as my global library. Is a neat idea. I really approve of that.
I do too. See, this is a feature, Valve, that makes sense and is nice. Do more of those.
Well, I think this is also factoring into the advanced recommendation engine, where you're able to tweak it a little bit more, but it gets essentially more knobs and bits of information to be able to factor off of.
More of those dials to turn.
Oh my. Yeah, what's kind of funny is, as Valve is doing this, there was a article talking about how Borderlands 3 won't have a preload because the Epic Game Store doesn't have that option. Oh. Boy, talk about the two opposite ends of the spectrum, huh?
Yeah. The Epic Game Store doesn't have a common feature? Such scandal.
Well, they're still trying to work out the shopping cart, you know?
Yeah. Trying to figure out how to collect the shopping carts, push them around, make them accessible to others.
And also how to get the quarter out of them, because they went and got the Aldi ones and stole those.
Have to chain them all up. And then you take the quarters out.
Ah.
You think they'd have figured that out already? Because then they could keep all the quarters.
Yeah, well. They've done some questionable things. I think that's fair to say.
I feel like that might be a bit of an understatement.
I'm being charitable.
That's pretty rare for you. You must be.
Yeah, because usually I call them fucking nitwits.
Yeah, that sounds more like it. Moving on, I think, to our last news topic. A niche developer offers game to schools for free.
No, it's not a niche developer. It's niche developer.
Niche developer.
The game is called Niche.
Is it really?
Yes.
Oh, I was going to say, you said you were familiar with this game earlier. I am not. I read the article, but I'm not familiar with the game.
It's a game about evolution.
Scandalous. That'll never sell here in the South.
Why do you think they're giving it away?
Touche. You were ready for that one.
Yeah, the game is called Niche, a genetic survival game. It actually has a very funny trailer on it because it does. One of them is live action fake professor.
Holy shit! I have this.
I was about to say, wait a minute, you have this.
I must have got a review key somewhere. I don't remember getting this. Well, yeah. I guess I'll be playing this for next week.
Yeah, I played it while it was still in early access, so I haven't played it recently. But essentially, it's a turn-based strategy game based around evolution and, filling in a niche in the environment. Hence the name. If I remember correctly, the tutorial was a bit unhelpful, but it was also, still in early access at the time.
Unhelpful is the best kind.
No, the best kind is completely absent.
No, I will play this for next week. I didn't realize I had it.
But you can see why the comment on the article is slightly unfortunate title.
That's niche.
Yeah.
Niche develop. Yeah.
A niche developer. Developer. I
guess I just misread that at the beginning or something, and my brain just skipped over it.
Or you didn't
it says
think,
developer Stray Font Studios.
Yeah, which, having another game out there in the wild, for, if you pardon the term phrase, for free for educators, it's hard to say anything bad about it. If I remember correctly, it
sucks.
Warps the concept, because if I remember correctly, one of the big things that Spore was panned for, which was another one of these, evolution games, was that Spore actually gives more of the argument for intelligent design at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly,
fun, though, with building your creature to look like a giant dick or something like that.
Spore was a neat 3D modeling program, and it sucked as a game.
The first was it 3? Before you go to space, that part of the game was all right. It's pretty decent. But then you go to space.
Not if you paid attention to any of the pre-release stuff and realize that, boy, they really gutted this game.
See, I didn't pay attention to any of the pre-release stuff. It came out in what, 2009? No, sooner than that. 2005, 6. When did Spore release?
2008.
Okay, so I was closer the first time then.
Yeah, Spore, really neat concept, but they got it to make it cute. Because they had an entire underwater life cycle that they gutted. They made it where it was essentially just parts that you put on your creature that determine the stats instead of the actual build of the creature. But Niche is more close to evolution, where you're dealing with random mutations, if I recall correctly. And essentially breeding out to try to make yourself more powerful through the random mutations, if I recall properly. But it's been a while. I may have to download it myself to try it out again, since it's left early access quite a while ago, actually. I mean, it left early access. Well, I'm assuming that's the. Looks like it had a hot fix last month. When did it release? News. Looks like it was 2017.
When it came out of early access?
Yeah. Yeah, leaving early access September 21st was the news article, so I probably played this in like late 2016.
Yeah, it says I've played it for 3 hours. That must have been a key farming.
Yeah, see, I at least tried it. I know of the game.
I didn't. I suppose I could have gotten it as part of a bundle or something as well, but I bet I got a key for this. I've got a bunch of games I have keys for that I haven't gotten to play yet.
I mean, it's basically a strategy with randomized units. It's interesting. So, teaching about random mutations and how sometimes they aren't as helpful. Yo, science!
Like a good time. Check out them random mutations.
Speaking of random mutations, time to head over to the community corner.
Indeed.
Not sure where I'm going with that, but sure. Right.
Yeah. So we did not have any emails that I saw. Did we have any tweets?
No, we did not. We haven't had tweets in quite a while, actually.
Well, we did have community game night. This past week, we were supposed to play DEF CON, but we were all very sleepy, so we just sat around talking and watching YouTube videos and browsing subreddits involving cooking and
I for one blamed
failures
Cube,
of cooking.
And it was Cube that originally linked that horrible pancake video, right?
Yeah, well, only that one guy was horrible. The grandma and the chef were both good.
Yeah, but it's completely turned me off from the channel. I don't want to watch anymore.
Oh, I've watched several of them. Every one that guy is on, his stuff is terrible. The granny has been on a couple of others, and she's always lovely. We watched, my whole family, we all sat down and watched one this evening. I was talking about it over dinner, and my kid was like, I want to watch YouTube videos, and Katie was like, well, that sounds interesting. I'd check it out. And we all enjoyed laughing at the guy making an ice cream sundae. Air quotes. Making an ice cream sundae.
Let me guess. First step, you get the keys to go down to the store.
So he used store-bought ice cream, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that if you're actually going to make some kind of actual sundae, because he's like the amateur guy. But what he did was he took store-bought ice cream, like dumped it out and mixed in like brownies and M&Ms, and then he like worked it. Like, you know how you see them do with like a Cold Stone, how they work the ice cream on that? He did that with it.
Okay, he's banned from the kitchen.
And then covered it in like a whole can of whipped cream. And then he put more brownies and chocolate sauce and M&Ms in it. It was just a mess.
So in other words, he had a little bit of ice cream with his toppings.
Yeah. Which also is fine if you want to do that, but it's like, That's not an ice cream sundae. You did not make an ice cream sundae. You made a sugary, liquidy mess.
He made diabetes.
Yeah.
And not even good diabetes.
I was like, I'm dying just watching this. My blood sugar is going sky high.
Oh, my blood pressure would be going sky high.
And then the other two, it was the same grandma from the pancake video, and then they had a different chef. And they both made, she made homemade ice cream, and the chef made homemade gelato, which I know gelato is ice cream, but it's got some different properties.
Italian.
Yeah, it's Italian ice cream. And he made something like really fancy, like it was too fancy for me. And then the grandma made like perfect, like what you think of as like a homemade ice cream sundae. So she's my favorite. That grandma's my favorite. I wish she was my grandmother.
Yeah, but then she would support Trump.
Oh, God. I think she's like from California or maybe the Northeast.
But speaking of ice cream videos, there was one I saw today from one of the channels I follow. Cereal milk ice cream.
Interesting. Go on.
Essentially, he used Fruit Loops, but this guy is from Canada, and he really wanted Apple Jacks, but he can't get them in Canada, which makes me feel sad. Essentially what it is, it's a ice cream that is infused with essentially a steeped milk. Think of it as, that infused milk that you have at the bottom of your cereal bowl. That as the flavor base for the ice cream. And he found, he was trying a shortcut method because I'm blanking on the brand that he mentioned in it, has their recipe out in the wild, but it's a lot more involved. It requires gelatin gelatin sheets to bloom. It has a couple different corn syrup or sugar syrups that it thickens the ice cream with. And he was trying one of his ice cream recipes, only infusing it with Fruit Loops and taking a couple of other steps with it. And this is the same guy that does a lot of sodas. So he's done a sweet potato soda. He's done a cucumber soda. He's brewed root beer, as in steeped from root beer. I may have to send you some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And he's just this nice older gentleman. And at the end, he's on there with his, I think, wife. I'm pretty sure wife. Talking about some of their adventures and trying out. Also, he does a lot of vintage Depression era cookbook food or cookbook recipes. Like one of the ones I randomly grabbed was a Canadian war cake that had no butter, no eggs, and it actually turned out all right. It just, the recipe was very vague because cookbooks in the early 20th century, outside of beginners cookbooks, expected you to know a certain degree of cooking skill. So they wouldn't give you like little things like oven temperature or time. So they expected you, okay, here's your ingredient list. Here's the basics of up until the cooking portion, or up until where we expect you to know what to do from here.
Here's the ingredients list. Mix and bake. Well, all right.
Actually, some of the recipes are practically that.
Well,
I'm going to send you some of the stuff.
You and I talking about cooking stuff on a fairly regular basis. I mean,
yeah.
I think, like, if we both sat down to cook the same dish, I'm pretty sure you're a better or more skillful cook than I am. But I feel like I have a basic knowledge. Like, I can cook anything as long as I'm given, like, some instructions on things.
Yeah, I'm more of a tinkerer recipe guy.
Yeah, when it comes to baking times, though, and temperatures and stuff, I think I've got that pretty down. But, I mean, I've been cooking for a long time. Mm-hmm. I just don't pursue it in the same sort of a hobby level that you do.
Well, considering I just got the stuff to make cheese today.
Yeah. Although that's something that I have done before.
Well, I don't really have a
time,
choice if I want good cheese, because like if I want Parmesan, my choice at the local store is, okay, which can do I want? Or I go an hour for it. So, you know.
I guess this has just become the food portion of the podcast.
Yeah, really. Well, also, I find interesting things that I like to try. So, unless it pisses me off a lot less in gaming. Unless, you know, people start linking me pancake videos with that guy again. But then I got my revenge.
Yeah, that guy's the worst. He's
yeah,
just
but
real
we
bad.
want plates. I think that triggered Cube and in a way that I didn't expect.
I thought most of that was pretty funny, though, honestly. The we want plates stuff. Some of it was like, what? But most of it was just kind of funny.
Yeah, it got Cube riled up more than I thought it would. I mean, I was expecting maybe a rouse, but he got angry. And that amused me.
Yeah.
Hey, we had some community stuff after all. I made Cube
Woo.
angry.
Woo! I think... okie dokie.
We only pick on Cube because we love him.
What was it? There was one... Oh, I remember. We got sidetracked. I was going to go ahead and say what next week's game is. I mean, you can go look at the pinned list, which is
so we're skipping
Discord.
DEF CON then and putting it back at the end of the list?
I guess we can do that. Let me pull up the sheet.
It's Warframe, isn't it? Or
no, next week is, or this coming week is Tabletop Simulator. We're gonna do some co-op games.
Still haven't figured that one out.
Yeah, this weekend we need to chat about that a little bit. You know,
have a choosing?
Possibly just Sunday night, because we're, as far as I know, we moved Star Wars RPG night to this Saturday, and then I've got to take, Katie and I are going on a date one of the other nights between now and Sunday.
We still have Friday night rooms, I hope.
Yeah, I might be late depending on what we do for date night. I mean, I'll let you and other people who come, like Ghost Shark, know ahead of time if I'm going to be late, but I mean, we'll still do Friday night rooms. But anyways, this coming Monday is Tabletop Simulator. We're going to focus on some co-op stuff. That way we don't run into issues we've had in the past where it's like, well, I've been knocked out in the early game and I'm not going to sit around for 40 minutes and just do nothing.
I mean, to be fair, King of Tokyo usually isn't that long. It's just that was, you know, kind of an outlier. Then, you know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we'll see if we can find something a little bit better. Besides, King of Tokyo does get old after a while.
Indeed. Moving on, though, to where you should tell people where to go before I jump the gun on that.
Well, if you wish to send us an email, you can do so, vglpodcast@gmail.com. Or if you wish to wake up the dead bird, you can tweet us, vglpodcast, on the Twitter.
Twitter sucks now. Their new interface is hot garbage. It looks too much like the mobile app.
To be honest, I haven't used the Twitter interface in ages. I just use TweetDeck.
Yeah, I'm gravitating more towards TweetDeck all the time now. It looks like like I just said, the app, and I don't want that if I'm sitting.
Oh, their
at
app
my PC.
sucks.
Yeah,
their app always says, "Hey, so and so just interacted with you," and I tap on the interaction, and it was, "You sent me something 4 hours ago."
Yeah. Oh, 4 hours. Wow, that was fast. I get notifications all the time from 14, 18, 1 day ago.
No. Even better was, it was one that I already responded to.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a reason why on mobile I've been using Twitter there instead of the actual Twitter app. Because the Twitter app sucks.
I don't mind the Twitter app too much for how little I use the app on my phone. But, yeah, the new site interface sucks. But you announced the things, so now I can actually move on and say doobly-doo for a discovery queue.
And of course, I have mine open and one immediately.
What you got?
The Song of Seiya, a visual novel. This one, I already looked it up since I had my discovery queue open for a while. I looked it up on Visual Novel Database. A little bit more horror themed. I will say that the Steam version appears to be censored, and the developer sells a uncensored patch for a few bucks. So that's a definite knock against it, in my opinion. But supposedly very creepy, and they call it a horror romance visual novel, so take that for what you will.
There's a lot of meat. Like, the walls are meat. That guy's covers have turned into meat on his bed. Those are skulls.
Yeah, it's the gore type of horror, so.
I don't like this. I don't like it one bit. It might be excellent, but not for me.
If I remember correctly, it's rated fairly decently on Visual Novel Database. It's just, different strokes, right?
Indeed.
You got something?
All right. Yeah, I got one. I was looking at yours. Let me... Oh, shit. Knock things over on my desk. It's fine. No liquid went anywhere.
We're fine. Everything's fine here. How are you?
We're all fine here. Yep. I will pick that up later. So this is called Dicey Dungeon.
Oh, that just released a day or two ago, didn't it?
Yeah,
Yesterday.
so this is a roguelike, or tags, indie strategy roguelike, card game, RPG. Like
from the developer of VVVVVVVVV and Super Hexagon.
Yeah. So you're some adventurers in like a D&D style thing that have been turned into dice. And then you have to go on an adventure utilizing your dice. It's got a very cute looking art style. I like the that idea. Like, you have become dice. Now go on a RPG. Or have an RPG experience. But I have not seen or heard this game before this moment, but it looks really neat.
Well, obviously I have, because it's on my wish list.
Indeed. It's
and unlike you, not everything in the Steam library or Steam catalog is on my wish list. Only most of it.
I just got Song of Seiya.
Well, I have Vicious Cycle. Vicious Cycle is an uncooperative multiplayer shooter in which mercenaries compete for loot against a terrifying monster. So, it sounds like the Left 4 Dead model where only you're fighting off against one particular monster. It's interesting. The problem is, this is a multiplayer shooter, so you're dealing with, potential population problems. This is developed by Rooster Teeth Games, though, so, at least somewhat decent behind things. I mean, they do have Ruby already in their catalog, so, they do have a little bit of a pedigree.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't know that they continued making games. Like, I knew that they made Ruby.
I mean, this definitely looks almost Overwatch-ish in art style, huh?
Yeah.
Just something about it, right? I guess it's the color palette.
It looks interesting.
Yeah, I haven't seen this before, and it's definitely interesting. And I like that they call it uncooperative multiplayer shooter. So, it sounds like there's a definite competitive aspect between the players trying to get loot. It becomes a vicious cycle.
I wonder how much of the Rooster Teeth voice cast is in the game. Like, did they do all their own voice acting? Is it people we know and love? Is it, because I mean, Rooster Teeth is a big company now. They've got several hundred employees. I mean, they're more than, I don't even know what they would be at this point. A multimedia company?
Oh, I thought. I guess that would be the best way to describe them.
Because I mean, they're developing games. They have multiple animation things that they do, machinima, several animations that they create in-house. They make Ruby. They produce various live action content. They made what is it called, Day 5, which was like a 6-part miniseries. They probably make a lot of stuff that I don't even know about anymore, just because I don't really follow them like I once did. So maybe it is full of people that I would know and love if I'd kept up with them over the years. Still, it looks neat. I got one though. Were you done?
Yeah.
I kind of just started talking. Okay. Variables. This is a
Well, where's
tower
the
defense.
constants?
I don't know. This is a tower defense style game, but like it's saying like the big thing is you get to make your own sort of pathing and tower placement and everything based on a path that is generated. And like that's the whole thing. Like you get to make sort of the levels based on a path that shows up on a grid, which seems kind of neat. I know tower defense games have kind of done that before, but you still have to work within the limits, and it makes it sound like you get to design the entire everything about the level as you play.
Yeah, it looks like there's some sort of randomization on the actual loot as well.
Yeah.
Or not loot, but towers that you get. So, I mean, that's very interesting. So definitely playing with variables. This reminds me a little bit, not art style, but sort of the direction they're taking of trying to change up things, of Revenge of the Titans, where they threw a lot of odd design choices for a tower defense game into it by Puppy Dog Studios, where they were trying to make it so that it's not just amazing and that's it. I mean, this looks like something I'd be interested in. So, something else I'd be interested in. Hey, I got another visual novel.
What?
Nin Days. It's not 9 because there's no E's, but a solemn main character and a clumsy female ninja living together in this romance adventure game set in Abkhazia. You'll laugh, you'll cry over the entertaining art style of a slightly erotic female ninja and the main character's cohabitation. I looked it up on Visual Novel Database in the meantime, and it looks like it's rated somewhat well. I mean, it's not amazing, but it's, not trash either. So, it definitely has some potential. A very detailed art style on the sprites for the visual novel portion of it. And, interesting idea. It does have some sexual content. And hey, this time they do have the patch out for free. So there you go, right?
Nice. Yeah, that sounds interesting.
It's a very pretty looking visual novel too. That's the thing.
So I've maybe got one. I'm trying to figure out who makes this. Focus Home Interactive is the publisher. Let me get a link. Shit, I clicked off on the tab I was on. Okay, good. This is called Greedfall. All, or one word. It looks like it's a single player RPG.
That is very interesting.
It's got a mix of Eastern and Western RPG elements. Some interesting sort of what's the right time frame? Like sort of British colonial era. Like there's muskets and some dress that makes it seem like this is in maybe the 17th, 18th century. Like,
It's just about the same developer that made Technomancer.
But there's magic and
Technomancer.
At first I thought this was an MMO, but it looks like it's single player.
Now, Technomancer really mixed tech and magic really well. I mean, overall, it did pretty middling in reviews, but it sounds like they fixed it later on, but not enough to bring their reviews up from mixed overall. So this looks like it's like a extension of the idea of sci-fi fantasy almost.
This looks neat.
Yeah, I haven't played Technomancer, but this looks a lot like it's starting off a lot better.
Yeah, it releases in September. You can pre-purchase, which I would say don't do that. I'm going to see if it's...
Otherwise, you'll get a spanking.
It's on Keymailer. Request a key. It's not. Okay.
So, you got anything else to say about it, or?
No, it just looks really neat. I mean, unless this thing comes out and it's like a steaming hot pile of garbage, I might buy this.
Yeah, it does have a definite MMO feel about it. But then again, that's sort of how third-person ARPG has kind of progressed at this point. That's not Diablo style.
I do like, though, the offline MMO sort of feel.
As long as it it has a lot more of a story than most of the offline MMOs.
Yeah.
So, I got one. Gibberish, a Cthulhu adventure. Crazy cultist, Cthulhu, a talking cat. Gibberish takes you on an expansive, traditionally animated, hand-painted adventure. So, point-and-click adventure game with a lot of old Telltale feel about it. I mean, take a look at this. This looks like Adventure on Monkey Island, only hand-painted. This is like Adventure on Monkey Island and Cuphead got locked in a room together. And I really dig this art style. Waiting for you to click on it to see. I mean, that
what the fuck?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, that's one very angry cat.
But is it a cool cat?
Oh, it's an angry cat. It's Grumpy Cat reincarnated.
Oh, snap.
Trying to think. There was another point-and-click adventure that I played. Actually, on my channel, this feels a lot like Dogman Sia and Pizza Boy. It's based off of a comic series. This has sort of that, kind of goofy feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm definitely I'm in on this. I like this. As long as it's complete. I mean, that's the other thing. If they are setting up for a series, then that's going to be a little bit tougher. But stuck in attic. Looks like this is their only game so far. So yeah, let's see how that turns out. Well, I just got variables. You got one?
Yeah, I got one. Eliza, I think you sent me
I've told
an
you
article about this.
And that just came up in my queue as well.
Yeah, so Eliza is a visual novel about an AI counseling program. And
this is from Zachtronics.
And use it. This is fascinating to me, right up my alley. Obviously, I think everyone listening to this podcast knows that I am a therapist, so I am...
Yeah, that's therapist, not the rapist.
Yes, indeed. So I would enjoy playing this and then sort of critiquing it, like how well does it do portraying therapy, psychology, etc. So it's $15.
I mean, Psychologist is typically pretty good on the quality.
Yeah, I'm tempted to buy it right now. I'll think about it. I might see if I could get a key on Keymailer or something beforehand, but I'm very tempted to just buy it. It's on Keymailer, so I'll request a key, and then if I don't get a key, I'll buy it. Alright.
Let's see, I got Asbelov, End of Gods, since I had to skip a few of mine that you already taken. In the future, Viking horror, you awake in a sanctuary of steel and concrete, built to research and exploit the worlds of Yazgaroth, and house an artifact buried in the earth aeons ago. So, action horror, it doesn't look like it's the gross out, blood and guts horror. It looks like, a few demons here and there, and that's about it. But more action oriented and possibly some more psychological than typical horror. So it looks interesting. See, it's a horror experience focused on narrative and stealth, according to one reviewer. So it's a more narrative survival horror game, which sounds good. But there are some places that, it sounds like it's not quite as polished as it could be. It's from Angry Demon Studio, which has done a lot of games that I haven't heard of. So there is that. But they are an established studio, at least, and looks like they hold about in the 80-90% range on their games, so fairly decent. I would say overall worth a look, at least.
Alright, this is the last game on my list. I honestly am not sure what I'm looking at, and I don't know if I like it or not, but I have to talk about it. Rabbit Burn. Just let me
well, those are tits.
read this. Let me just read this to you. Fabulous riches, flying fists, and sensual embraces around in this dazzling arena where rabbit men and bunny girls sprint to and fro, dodging explosions, brawling, making love, or just rocking out. It's the crazy, depraved billiards game, Rabbit Burn. I don't know what this is. I think I like it, but I'm not sure because I don't know what it is.
The tits are out, so, of course you like it.
The breasts are exposed for our pleasure.
Well, as long as you like them rock hard and unmoving.
Well, it's me we're talking about. I'm honestly not too picky about that sort of thing. Boobs are boobs. Okay, here's the top review. How to describe this game. You have a billiard yard with a colored demonic rabbits getting chased by horny anime chicks while you get slapped around by other rabbits. There's a gallery that opens up each time you unlock a girl. The game is technically censored by the developers since they do not offer regional discrepancy. Uncensored patch, and there's a link to the uncensored patch. The next review. The game is designed to be played with mouse only. You can do whatever you want with your other hand. So there we go.
So I got at least one more. I still have two more remaining in my queue. Okay. Indivisible. This is from the same developer that made Skullgirls. Indivisible is a hand-drawn action RPG platformer from Lab Zero, creators of the critically acclaimed Skullgirls. Set in a huge fantasy world, Indivisible tells the story of Anisha, a fearless girl with a rebellious streak who sets out on a quest to save everything she knows from being destroyed. Looks like some heavy visual novel ideas on the cutscenes, mixed with some platforming, a little bit of Easter eggs. I mean, I see a waiting companion cube right there, so there is that, right? Indeed. Overall, it looks interesting. Very clean art style. I mean, it's not amazing, but it looks colorful. And I mean, it's from the Skullgirls developers, and that was a pretty good game overall. It's releasing in October, so still a ways off. So no reviews, not sure what's up with it just yet. But they are calling it a Metroidvania, so, it looks like potentially a lot of backtracking and a lot of exploration based on unlockable powers, if that holds true. So very interesting. Speaking of very interesting, that is damn interesting. I need to link that. Okay, how about a really weird one, alright?
Okay.
Stone Story RPG. I want you to look at this before I mention anything.
Okay. Oh, that's neat.
This is
I don't think
all
I'd like it,
ASCII.
but it's neat.
This is a graphic. All the graphics are entirely in ASCII symbols. Journey through a cursed land to unite non-magical soul stones and restore the light. So, an ARPG technically. Only everything is built through ASCII, so it looks like it could be developed back in the 80s. Some of it is a lot more rough than others, like your character is like a stick figure, but then the world looks a lot more detailed. I mean, it's a really neat art style. I've seen this worked on a couple times, or this art style, but it just fascinates me every time because that is a lot of extra effort to go into that sort of thing. So yeah, impressive. Not sure how well it plays, but yeah, right. I think it's definitely, if it's for you, we'll jump all over it. If not, then let's see, my last one. Okay, I'll add this to the list as well. Hang on, just developed this. Looks like it's in the publisher. Yeah. Okay, this is another take on Rocket League. It seems like we're getting into the development cycle where games that were workshopped when Rocket League was starting to really take off is coming out a lot more.
I've seen
this.
This
Is Steel
it's been
Circus.
on the Steam front page for a couple of days, I think.
Oh, I thought I grabbed the name, but Steel Circus. Essentially, Dota meets Rocket League with different heroes controlled in the Dota sort of perspective, trying to think of, not isometric, but proper ARPG or Dota style, far off, click and move around. It's free to play with a all champions pack for $20. I mean, definitely worth looking at least. Let's see. Looks like it does have a problem with people dumping out of the game if they're losing. So, yeah, Rocket League problems, right?
Yeah.
And also it looks like there may be some matchmaking issues. This looks like it's the developer's first time around, so yeah, that is a little bit concerning. But hey, yeah, it's interesting to start seeing a lot more takes on Rocket League because we've seen the roller derby one from Ubisoft. We're starting to see more and more Rocket League-esque games coming out, which more competition, right?
Indeed.
Because I think, I know that Rocket League still has a pretty big player base, but at the same time, having some sort of variance on the formula, or seeing other developers taking the idea and running with it, to try to iterate and bring some more variety to the, what would you call it even? Action sports or genre?
Sports fantasy genre?
Fantasy sports?
Possibly.
Seeing more options in that little sub area is always great to see. So it doesn't have to take away from Rocket League, and this looks odd. You know, it looks different, I should say. And it looks like it has a lot more than just being Rocket League, only you're playing an ARPG styling with heroes. So if it offers something different and it's able to actually get a player base, which is a little bit concerning, then it's definitely worth checking out at least. And hey, it's free to play.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the end of my queue.
Cool.
So, not counting the, like 2 or 3 you took from me.
Well, that's just payback. Because you've done that to me before.
Yeah, and last week we inadvertently both took the same one. Which was kind of funny, huh?
Yeah. So I got 5. That's pretty good for me.
Yeah, I got about my bulk standard.
All right. Well, with that over, it's time for me to say, hey, Rage, hit it with the socials.
Well, I've been Caffeine Rage. You can find me on the YouTubes, Gaming with Caffeine Rage. You can find me on Twitter, occasionally, Gaming with CR. You can find me on Twitch, rarely, Caffeine_Rage. And you can find me on Steam, always, Caffeine Rage. And you've been
Gaming Psychologist. You can find me on the YouTubes by searching for Gaming Psychologist. On Twitter, at JMA4707. And if you want to be my friend on Steam, you can do so by sending a friend request, to jarthur4707.
And if you wish to let them know exactly what episode of the podcast you're coming from, the password for this week is Fiddle Faddle. Fiddle Faddle.
I haven't had Fiddle Faddle in a long time because, diabetes. But it's good.
Well, I was going more for the term of just, nonsense, but sure. Yeah, you got the diabetes, so.
Yep.
And something else we've got is, once again, our email address. Boy, that's a terrible transition, but let's go with it. VGLpodcast@gmail.com with your alerts, voicemails, and gaming-related topics, or just tweet them to us, VGL Podcast. And a big shout out to our lovely, lovely patrons, even if we did Angry Cube this week. Patreon.com/VGL Podcast for more details. And our lovely patrons have made our Podbean page possible. VGLpodcast.podbean.com, which hosts the show notes, the RSS feed, links to all our content online, or you can just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or your podcatcher of choice. Our intro and outro music is On the Ground by Kim McLeod and Doobly Doo. Our Discovery Key music is by the same artist. You can find his work at incompetech.com. And
as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice, bye-bye now.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.